actually here because if you were to poll people at the Capitol on who they think uses social media the most, I would come up in the top 2 or 3. And the reason for that is because I have found it to be very fascinating, and I did not use some of these things before I got elected. And so I got elected in 2008. I was elected as a Republican against an incumbent in an Obama year. And there's one of 2 of us in the entire state that did that last cycle. And I had nothing to do with social media at the time when I got elected. And once I got elected, I decided, well, I'd start messing around with Twitter and Facebook and figure out what I wanted to do after I got elected. And I'll talk a little bit about that because those of you sitting in there in the audience, the first thing I'm going to say to you is you may be sitting here thinking today you will never, ever, ever want to be a politician. How many of you would think that? Great. I was with you. This was never, ever going to be something I was going to do in my entire life. I was a therapist. I didn't like politicians. I didn't like anything to do with politicians. I saw what I saw on television and thought, why in the world would I want to be that when I grew up? I didn't even go to government classes that talked about what they did. You guys are way beyond me. I never would even sit through a policy class on issues. And I got recruited. Somebody came to me and said, you really ought to run. And now that I'm here, I figured out that somebody knew way more about me than I knew about me, because I'm actually very good at this job and do it what I would call the right way. I'm actually a representative of the people. And being a representative of the people, you can use social media to actually do it very well. So this is my website. It is my official website. I have more than one, but this is my official one, my campaign one. And this one's very simple. It doesn't have a whole lot to it. But I also am on Facebook and Twitter. Can somebody tell me what the difference is between the audiences on Facebook and Twitter? What's the difference? I'm on several others too. But Facebook and Twitter, what's the difference? Nobody? Facebook are the people that you know. Twitter are the people you want to know. Karen Fessler is somebody that I never would have met had it not been for Twitter. She and I met over Twitter talking about things that we had in common, and we ended up being from the same area, because you can search for people in your community that are also on Twitter. She and I are like-minded in a lot of things. We're both Republicans, we both were working toward different things in campaigns, but I never would have known Karen had it not been for Twitter. And so there's a lot of people like Karen out there that I don't know, but I'm wishing to know. Those are the people you follow on Twitter. So what does Twitter do for me? My first year in office, I was a freshman. There's 100 of you up there, so you have to distinguish yourself between the other 100. How am I going to get stories in the newspaper? The Gazette is not good. If I was City Press Citizen's bad, the Gazette is really not good about putting anything we have to say in the paper, because there are 9 of us elected officials in Lane County. And so for them to have to give one person press, they would have to give something to the other 8, and so they choose to mostly cover nothing, which is very sad, because you can read the paper and it'll have maybe a small snippet of what's going on, but it doesn't really show you what's happening. So I started right away on Twitter, and the very first thing that started happening is I would get press requests all the time. So if you are in the Channel 9 viewing area, or Channel 7, I think, well, Channel 9, Channel 2 for sure, when you see their canned footage, it's me sitting at the desk. Every time they talk about the State House, my picture's on TV, every time. And that didn't happen accidentally. They sent me a tweet and said, hey, did you come over here so we could film such and such? Sure. So I get up and go film such and such. After a while, what happened is I became the expert on issues. They would call me to ask the backstory on a bill that's coming up. They'd say, we don't understand such and such, we're going to run the story about this. Now, I may not be the person whose name or whose picture came on the story at night, but I was the one that helped explain the issue behind the issue. Because I'd rather them have the issue right on the media than I would have the issue wrong. So I'd rather teach them the issue even if I never got credit. And so that's how they started rolling, was with the press. But from there, then it started with constituents. People from back home started following me. I have a following on Twitter of about 1,500 people. I try to keep it mostly to Iowa. I don't really try to go too far out of that. And on Facebook, it's only about 800. And Facebook is more like my friends from college, my friends from high school, people where I used to live, and a lot of Facebook is a weird crowd. But Twitter is really more political. They really want to follow me because of the politics. And so it's very interesting. And so constituents started sending me messages. Instead of emailing me, I get instant messages through Facebook on a bill. I will get direct messages through Twitter on an issue, and then they'll want to talk to me about it, and then I can send them my email and they can connect with me, or my phone number and connect with me. And so it became an access point for people from all over the place. And then what really got interesting, on Facebook I started posting things like charts, because you can post pictures. So if you'll go to my Facebook page, and you're welcome to do this, I started posting charts on like the rise of property taxes over the next several years, or the rise in Medicaid spending, or things of that nature. And all of a sudden, people started asking me for permission to repost those things, to teach them to their board, to share them with what they were doing. And there's actually some folks here at the university going to use some of that material. It's not my material, but I have permission to pass it on, so they're going to use it, etc. So that's how it became important to me with my constituents. I do have a blog that I call the Government Wastebasket. And I don't like blogs. And let me tell you why. If you have an inkling that you want to run for office one day, everything you put out there, they can use against you. Everything. So I didn't live in high school and college with the camera phone. And let me tell you, had I been around during the phase of the camera phone, I may not be elected to office. You know what I mean? Anybody but me? Okay. So you guys have to be very careful because employers now look at your Facebook page before hiring you. They look at your LinkedIn account. They read your Twitter page. If you don't think so, that's the first place we look to find any information about you. So if you're going to go out and be a candidate for something or even just get a job, you really need to think that through because I've seen some really juicy photos of people that are applying for blank. And you look at them and go, they want to be a policy specialist for what? And they're like, you know, Lena, you never know. You know what I'm talking about. So you just have to be careful. So my blog is really an issue blog where people, what happened for me was I would start talking about my background is human services. So I talk about what's the waste and inefficiencies in the human services budget. And let me tell you, there's a whole lot of mess going on there. So I started posting trend topics where people could come in and post their solutions, their suggestions, their ideas on how we can fix the budget. So I don't really give a lot about me. It's more about what other people think, and it's a place for them to go ahead and communicate. Because otherwise, they kept replying to all and filling out my email box. So they basically begged me to have a place so they could have input into what was going on in my life. So that's basically what it is. Can somebody here, you guys are historians, and some of you in the making, what was the phrase, loose lips sink ships? Where did that come from? In the back. World War II, for what? Okay. So it was about when people were writing home, right? Yeah. So they were writing home to their friends and families and telling too much military information, giving away too many military secrets, which they thought could be used against them to capture them. So they're located on the island of such and such, and they would give away too much information, and people would then find them and they could sink their ship. Today, the motto is loose tweets sink fleets. Same concept. How many of you guys remember there was I can't remember the state, I wish I'd asked Karen because she'd know. There was a state where there were going to be members of the majority party flipped so that the other party became the majority. And before it happened, before the deal was struck, somebody tweeted about it and blew the whole thing up. And so the party that was going to become the majority stayed in the minority because of a linked a tweet that just went out and said, guess what, so-and-so is going to jump out of such and such party and jump into ours, we're going to be the majority. One tweet messed up the entire thing for that particular state. So if you have ADHD and you don't think before you speak, Twitter is not for you. It's just not. Because you'll say stuff and you can never get it back. You just can never get it back. So you really have to be very specific about what you put. So if on websites, on blogs, on everything, you don't get it back. And so you may not think today that you ever want to do blank. And you never want a job where, but just be careful with what you post. And if you've gone out and done too much too soon and you're not famous yet, go clean it up first before you become famous. That's my last advice for folks because I'm serious. I have never in a million years dreamed I'd be here where I am today. And there are some things that I'm very glad were not caught on camera.